Hey guys, and welcome to Idahoflylife. Today we're going to be starting our Introduction to Fly Tying series, and we're going to start out with tools. Fly tying tools I'm going to categorize as basic, intermediate, advanced. Doesn't actually mean that any of these tools really fall into one of those categories. I know you just have to use the tools that you have to use for whatever fly you're tying, but this is going to give beginners the start that they need, I hope, to kind of accumulate those tools in a pattern that makes sense. So we'll go ahead and get into that right now. First, have to have a beverage anytime you're talking about fly tying or fly tying tools. Let's get into it. All right, guys, so this is basic tools. So really, as far as basic tools goes, you really only need about 3 or 4 things. First one is a vise. The vise holds the hook. And the vise styles that I like to use are these 2 styles. One of these is a Renzetti, and this is their Traveler series. I've probably been tying on this the longest, at right around 7 or 8 years total time on this vise. And this would be a Regal. I believe this is the Medalist. It's just an adjustable, non-rotary vise. Now, we'll get into vices in another video more in depth, but that's what I use. But any vise is going to work. Anything that'll hold the hook securely, which is what you want from a vise. Any vise in a kit, any vise that you see around will work. Second thing is a bobbin. Now, a couple schools of thought. You can go with an inexpensive bobbins like these guys. I think this one was maybe $10. This one was $5. Bobbin's just there to hold your thread. Allow you to maneuver that thread around whatever hook and around whatever fly you're tying. But any bobbin will do. I prefer the right bobbins. They have a little bit more technology. You can adjust the tension on the bobbin. Ceramic, I've got the right half hitch as well. It's whatever you prefer. These are going to run you a little bit more. I think these are $35 each, so a little bit more of an investment there, but they are well worth the money. And the last thing you'll need, starting out, is a good pair of scissors. These are Terras. I've got some old MFC scissors that you can't get anymore. I really wish I could, because these are getting dull, and I really like these scissors. And then I've got just a couple other smaller pairs of scissors as well. Whatever scissor you want is fine. Dr. Slick makes some awesome scissors. Again, MFC, if you can find these, if anybody still has these in stock, these are great scissors. But whatever fits in your hand comfortably for scissors. So I like I said, I like the MFCs. I can pretty much hold them the whole time I'm tying. That's really all you need. As far as like whip finish tools, that kind of thing, those can come later. You can learn to hand whip finish. There are tons of videos on YouTube on how to hand whip finish. I don't do so. Bodkins, that kind of thing, those can come later. But for tying a nymph, say you're tying a gold-ribbed tarsier, this is all you need. You don't need anything else but this as far as tools are concerned. All right, so from our basic tools, we're going to get into the intermediate tools. Now, these are kind of fly specific. So you're pretty much on every fly you're going to use the basics. From here on out, it's going to be tools that you won't have to use on every fly. First up, hair stackers. And I prefer these flip out style stackers. But hair stackers, anytime you're doing a deer hair, elk hair fly, you need aligned hair tips. You have to have a hair stacker. A lot of different styles. The brass base hair stackers work just fine. I just like these. They're very convenient. After you get the hair stacked, you can flip them open. So this is my recommendation on hair stackers, but any of the hair stackers are going to stack hair effectively. The next thing you're probably going to need is a hackle plier. So if you're wrapping any kind of hackle, especially on smaller dry flies, it behooves you to have a hackle plier of some variety. So your standard spring hackle pliers, these work great. You've got rotary hackle pliers. These are fine as well. They move as you're wrapping the hackle. So they're just a rotary hackle plier. These plunger style hackle pliers. Now I use these the most. I love the plunger style hackle pliers. I've got a couple sets of them up here. I think they're fantastic. In this category as well, be a whip finishing tool. And I've got 2 here. I tie a lot of parachute flies. I like having a longer whip finisher for parachute flies, but that's just my personal preference. This simplifies your life. It's all it does. You can learn to hand whip finish. You can use that forever. It's a very useful skill to have. This is a much simpler method. every video you watch is probably going to have one of these. And for a $6 investment to be able to do it quickly and effectively with a whip finish tool, I would really recommend it. Last thing in this category is going to be some sort of bodkin. This one happens to have a half hitch tool on the back, but you know, if you're doing anything with head cements, anything like that, a bodkin really helps you precisely apply those. A million uses for these, flatten out your thread, but a bodkin would be the next recommendation. It is a fantastic tool. Got to have one in this category. All right, so we've got a pretty large accumulation of tools at this point. The next couple of things, these are, I shouldn't say specialty items in this day and age, but they're a lot more specific. And there's a workaround for them too, and I'll show you that as well. These are going to be your UV cures. So I have Solarez Bone Dry here. I've got a bunch of other ones. I think I have all of the Loon Cures from the thick all the way to the flow. Lot of different UV cure options. This is something that, like, if you're tying Euronip stuff, if you're tying Perdigons, a lot of flies are calling for UV cure now. And along with that, you'll have to have a UV light to cure that UV cure as well. So this is a pretty pricey buy-in. I want to say this deal of UV cure is probably 15 to 20 bucks. The lights run anywhere from like 20 to like $150. And there's a lot of variation in between on the UV lights. But for those specific UV flies, it's just something that is really hard to get by without. Now you can use a product like this, Sally Hansen Hard as Nails. It takes some time to dry. It's like the old epoxies we used to use as well, but it's just a nail polish hardener is all it is. You can get that at a beauty supply store, but you are going to take a lot more time with that, and you can't just zap it and it cures like the UV cure. That's why this is more of an advanced item. You really, if you're going to tie any of those European style flies, you really want to have UV cure. Solarez, amazing brand. Loon does a good job as well. And then kind of the last thing to fall into maybe a more advanced item. Really, if you're doing like dubbing loops or anything like that, it's just going to be a dubbing spinning tool. It's an inexpensive tool. It's just not something that I really needed up until I started doing like the CDC collars on flies. Things like that. There's a few leech patterns that require that as well, or anytime you're doing a dubbing loop, like I know Kelly Gallup likes to do a lot of dubbing loops on his nymphs. That's when you'll need that. I probably didn't need that until about 4 years ago. So you can get by for a long time without something like this, but once you need it, you definitely need it. And that's true of all the tools here. Don't just go out and buy a bunch of tools. Start with the basic stuff, and if you need something else for a fly that you really want to tie, then buy that item. You don't need all of this stuff right away. In fact, a lot of you, I mean, if you're never going to tie European style flies, you really, or you're never going to use anything that requires this UV cure, there's no point in having it. Same thing, you know, a lot of this stuff is that way. The rotary style hackle plier, you may not ever need that. The hair stackers, if you're not tying a lot of deer hair flies, or you're not tying deer hair flies, you don't like that style of fly, you're never going to need that stuff. So start with the basics, work your way up to the other things as you need them for the flies that you tie. Couple kind of honorable mentions in the tool category. Have a pair of hemostats at your desk, and these are just MFC hemostats. I like to use these to crimp some of the smaller barbs and some of the really large barbs. You can also use a set of pliers, but when I tie, I'm crimping all of the barbs on the hook. So that's something that you'll really want. The other thing that you're really going to want is some kind of tool, or excuse me, not tool storage. The Renzetti Caddy is great for tool storage. Realistically, it's more material storage. I'm going to take a couple pictures and put those up now to show you kind of my material storage setup. It doesn't have to be really expensive. Most of this is like from Walmart. It's just the cheap Sterilite drawers, things like that. There are a couple items that I like the look of on my tying desk, like the thread holder and the wire holder that you'll see that are a little bit on the pricier side, but you really don't need that. Just some place to put all of the materials you're going to accrue. And you will accrue a lot if you tie for a long period of time. That's it. It's pretty simple. Start with the basic stuff and work your way into whatever else you need. And I kind of base that on whatever pattern you're going to tie next. If you start off with the few that I've got up there, minus the Perdigon I did last time, then you really only need the bobbin, the scissors, maybe a whip finisher. That would kind of be the next one in that basic items that I would suggest, and then a vise. But yeah, just work your way up. Buy the tools in the order in which you need them, because I'll be the first one to admit I have a half a drawer full of tools that I pre-bought and have never used. So don't be me. Do it the smart way. That would be what I would recommend. But really appreciate you watching this video, guys. If you're a beginner, I really hope this helps you out. This kind of stuff I know can be really confusing. The next thing that we're going to jump into is going to be materials. We're going to do an introduction to materials. It's going to be really basic because, again, kind of a spoiler alert, a lot of the materials you're going to buy based on the flies that you're tying as well. But we'll go through kind of a basic on that. But again, thanks for watching the video, guys. I really appreciate it. If you would, drop a like, subscribe if you found this video valuable, and have a great day.